Madam Chair, Councilor Romero, we are live.
Thank you. All right. At 5:03, I'm calling to order the Public Works and Utilities Committee for today, June 30th. Could we get a roll call, please?
Certainly, Councilor Romero Worth, Councilor Castro,
Presente.
Councilor Lee Garcia,
I'm here.
Councilor Romero Worth,
I'm here.
Councilor Chavez,
He's excused.
Councilor Michael Garcia.
He's excused till he gets to the chamber.
You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any changes to tonight's agenda?
No changes from staff, Madam Chair.
Okay, if there are no changes from the committee, can we get a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for tonight. If we get a roll call, please.
Certainly, Councilor Castro.
Yes.
Let's see, Councilor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. We are on to approval of the consent agenda. I do believe there were two items taken off. Item 7. Let's
Madam Chair, item 7G, request for approval of a renewal of comprehensive insurance program, and
Okay.
item 7K, consideration of resolution proposing a ballot question to be submitted to the city voters regarding amending the city's charter.
Okay, and anything else the committee is interested in hearing tonight? And if not, is there a motion?
Move to approve as amended.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Do we need a roll call on this? No. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That motion passes. Okay, from there, we are on to public comment. Is there anybody here who wishes to address the committee during public comment? I don't see anybody coming to the podium. So we will move on.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
there are a couple of people in the Zoom room.
Oh, okay.
We don't always have a Zoom for public comment, but
Right.
since we do, perhaps we'll check.
Okay, sure. Anybody?
So if you're in the Zoom room and would like to make public comment tonight at the Public Works Committee, can you please raise your hand? Madam Chair, the only one with their hand up is Geraldine Cardenas, our Assistant City Clerk, so I don't think she needs to make public comment, but
Okay.
maybe something else. So thank you so much.
Okay. With that, then we'll close public comment. We'll go on to presentations. Tonight, we have a complete streets capital projects accomplishment and status report. And we have Romela Glorioso Mas, our capital projects manager here, along perhaps Cody Keelan. Yeah, okay, great. The project manager. So with that, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So for fiscal year 2025, we have 26 roadway and trails projects. These 26 roadway and trails projects are composed of 19 roadways, 6 trails, and 1 bicycle wayfinding signage. For roadway project types, we have 7 roadway reconstruction and 2 new roadways. We have 8 intersection improvements, 1 bridge, and 1 underpass. The project phases for fiscal year 2025, there is 1 project under planning, 17 under design, and 8 construction phase. The slide number 5 shows you in detail what are the status of each project. The most accomplishment for our section is we completed the construction of 2 trails. The first trail that we finished construction is the El Camino Real Academy Trail, which is a safe route to school trail. The funding was from federal government, 100% funding from the federal government, and it cost $1 million. The second one is the construction of Cañada Rincon Trail, which cost $2.75 million. This is a beautiful trail, and I think personally this is the most beautiful trail in the city of Santa Fe. The project funding sources for fiscal year 2025 comes from the federal government, which is 16.9 million, which represents 76% of our funding. 3.4 million from the state, which is 18% of our funding source, and city contribution is 1.4 million, which is 6% of the funding. To compare our accomplishment from our FY 2025 accomplishment from past fiscal years, I always use the 2020 as an example because that's when COVID hit and everyone expects that we will slow down because of funding. We will have less projects, but actually that's not what happened. So if you can see, in 2021, we almost doubled our projects, and now we are managing 26 projects, capital projects. The turning point is 2021. What happened in 2021? The capital projects is now driven by planning. We coordinated and collaborated with Santa Fe MPO, with BPAC, other departments in the city of Santa Fe, with NMDOT and FHWA. So with that collaboration, we now look at the projects that prioritized by SFMPO, and for fiscal year 2025, there were 29 projects prioritized in SFMPO Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and we are working 15 of those projects, and so on and so forth. What happened also in 2021 is that the funding sources in fiscal year 2020 is generally from the city of Santa Fe via road impact fees and capital outlay funding, which is legislative funding. We diversified the funding sources from fiscal year 2021 to present, and you can see that most of our funding source is federal government. We also shifted to a strong road safety culture. So the Complete Streets resolution was approved sometime in 2021, and we adopted the safe system approach in designing our roadways. So if you remember, we are working on 7 reconstruction of road reconstruction. So we are adding ADA compliant sidewalks and bicycle lanes, and we are constructing trails. We also shift to a more sustainable infrastructure. So from traffic signals to roundabout, we finished the Camino Entrada roundabout in 2022, and we are about to begin the construction of Agua Fria Cottonwood roundabout project. We are also moving from brown infrastructure to green infrastructure using green infrastructure technology for controlling stormwater. So this portion of our presentation will focus on a few projects that we would like you to give you an update. The first one is the Guadalupe Street Reconstruction Project, which starts from Agua Fria to Paseo de Peralta. The project timeline, in 2015, the road safety audit was completed. And in 2017, the engineering design started and the first public meeting was held. And in 2022, we finished the design. So from 2017 to 2022. And the design was approved by NMDOT and FHWA. And in 2023, we bid the project. For the first time we bid out the project, no one bidded on this project. So we had to bid it out again. And we started construction of the Guadalupe reconstruction project in January of 2024. Our target date or target month, I should say, to finish the construction of this project is August 30, 2025. We received $11 million from HSIP from design to construction. Well, what is the project scope? So there's a 13-foot wide median, 11-foot, two 11-foot travel lanes, 5-foot bike lanes, both sides, and 6-foot sidewalk. What are the project benefits? There's an enhanced safety for all, improved mobility and accessibility, public health and environmental gains, economic and community revitalization, and stronger community and civic vitality. For most recent updates, for construction update, I turn you over to Obi Kelly.
Councilors, our current phase of the project.
You need, I'm sorry, for people to be able to hear you online, you have to speak right into that microphone and make sure it's on. And if it's down too low, you can always put it on the side.
I'm sorry, Cody, can you really speak into the mic, like right into the mic? Yeah.
Is it, I don't think it's on. Is the green button on?
Let's try that there.
There you
Better?
are. There you
Okay.
are.
Our next slide that we have for the presentation is for the Agua Fria South Meadows intersection improvement. As of Friday, we were able to complete the asphalt reconstruction for the project. So we've currently got all the intersection along with the new turn bays paved out. As of today, we are working on the last improvement for the ADA curb ramp on the southeast corner of the project. We have a target date of December 30th to have the new traffic signals installed. That'll be the permanent traffic signals for it, along with the pedestrian push buttons for the project. So we will have traffic free flowing back on that once striping is completed. which we have anticipated on schedule with the contractor IMCO within 2 weeks. However, there still will be some construction activities taking place and traffic control in place until we get the permanent signage in place for, the signage and the traffic signals installed. Due to the long lead times of the instruments for the traffic signals, we don't have a date for that until the 30th of December. So that's where we currently stand with those two projects. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Ms. Romo.
Can we just backtrack a little bit? Since the mic wasn't on, everything you said about the Guadalupe project was not heard on Zoom. And I know there's large community interest in that. So
Sure.
maybe we could just recap. I think you said, and there it is right there, completion date, you're now looking at August 30th.
That's
But I
correct.
believe you said you're a week ahead of.
We're currently a week ahead of schedule right now. But with the weather moving in that it's predicted for this week, it might put a little bit of a damper on that momentum that we've been able to pick up in the last couple of weeks. That is also contingent on the gas company being able to finish their work as they're scheduled to at the end of business day tomorrow. But we have started work back onto the west side of the roadway, coming back from West Alameda back to Paseo Peralta. And we are currently 1 week ahead of schedule for that as what we've produced for our scheduling target dates.
And I believe you said there's a portion of the street reopened from Mackenzie to where again?
Correct. Yes, we were able to restore traffic service onto the roadway as of last Friday from Mackenzie Street north to Paseo de Peralta.
And as long as I'm asking questions, how long do you see? I mean, I know there's a lot of work here being done, particularly, you've got bike lanes, you've got sidewalks, you've got signals. How long do you think the traffic portion of this will be disruptive? All the way to August 30th? Or
Yes.
do you anticipate being able to get some traffic through prior to that?
We anticipate being able to open up fully the full north side from Agua Fria Street all the way through to Paseo de Peralta for the northbound traffic flow only at the end of this week, weather permitting. So that we will have traffic flowing once again back onto the northbound lanes, which have been closed now for several months. But the west side traffic southbound will be affected all the way until August 30th.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Just wanted to have you recap since
Yes,
the mic wasn't working. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So the next update is on Paseo del Sol extension. So this project, the design of the Paseo del Sol extension was completed in May, and the construction will be led by HomeWise. Another project update is a very important project, which is the Richards Avenue extension, Arroyo de los Chamisos crossing. The consultants completed the 30% engineering design in May 2025. We're moving to final design perhaps in a month. The project benefits are improved regional connectivity and reduced congestion, faster emergency response, support for multimodal access, and encouraging planned development. The estimated total project cost is about 31,375,000. The last update is on St. Michael's Drive Rail Trail Underpass project. The consultants are ready or prepared for the 60% engineering design for NMDOT and FHWA approval. We were not able to get their the NMDOT is requiring the Rio Metro to be involved in the review. So the governing body approved the memorandum of agreement with Rio Metro last week. So we will move forward with the review of NMDOT and FHWA. What's next in fiscal year 2026? will start, in addition to completing the Guadalupe Street project and Agua Fria South Meadows, will start the construction of Tierra Contenta Trail Extension from Buffalo Grass to South Meadows. Construction will start on August 4. We just finished the pre-construction meeting with NMDOT and FHWA last week. The second one, it will be the Agua Fria Cottonwood Roundabout. We are preparing the site for construction, and the tentative construction starts October 2025. The third one will be the Bachman Road bicycle improvements that may start in December. It depends on the receiving the funding for this project, but we have funding for this project. And the last one would be the Henry Lynch Road reconstruction. That's it from us. We stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Councilor Castro.
Just want to thank you so much for all the hard work. Cody, you as well. I think it's been amazing. I know Guadalupe Street project has been difficult. I'm excited for the August 30th date so we can start talking to folks, but I do understand that we've run into some difficulties and that could get pushed back if we find some other difficulties. One of the reasons that I've been making a little bit of a stink around our lodgers tax is because there's been a lot of requests from the businesses to bring tourism money and support once the road is finished. And I know that's more economic development, but I just want to make another attempt to advocate for some of the folks in the area that we did spend all summer on this construction project. Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Councilor Michael Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Romella and Cody, for the information and presentation. My question as well focuses around Guadalupe Street, just because there's a lot to be learned from this one. I think it was one of those situations where there was, as they say, anything that can go wrong went wrong, from, you know, historical acequias to gas lines to weather. I mean, it was a challenging project. My question revolves more around lessons learned and how we can work with the community to have proper community engagement on the front end. And I know that wasn't really done on this process, but we do have some major road reconstruction projects coming up, whether it's Cerrillos Road, Airport Road, and those are all high business corridors. So, and don't need an answer today, but I think it would be good for you know, the heads that had a part of this process to really kind of have an after action report, to have lessons learned. Where did we do wrong? Where did we do well? And that way, when we look at these future projects, we have a better, pun intended, roadmap for success.
Thank you so much, Councilor Garcia, for the comments, Madam Chair, if I might. Actually, if you remember from Mela's slide, Councilor Garcia, we did start public comment. We actually started engaging the public in 2015. I've been here for 7 years. We had about 2 public meetings a year ever since then. The road has been in design. We met with the businesses. We've been on site with them. We've done hangars. So I think, you know, public engagement did occur. I think your idea of what went well and what could be better would be that I think we were way too optimistic about our expected timeline for the project. We should have really realized that there was ancient infrastructure in that road, and that's what really slowed us down was, you know, water lines that broke, and as you mentioned, gas lines that were not far enough below the surface. And so I think that's a big lesson learned for us, is really to add a huge buffer in the expectations that we set for people for how fast we'll be able to go. There won't be very many projects that were as painful as this one, where you have businesses that have only one access and it's only on that road, and when we're reconstructing it, they're closed off. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, DOT is planning on reconstructing the 1 mile piece of Cerrillos from St. Francis to St. Mike's. While they're in front of some of those businesses, there might be some pain there as well. They are dividing that project as we did with this one. They're dividing the paving up into, I think, 3 phases on Cerrillos to really try to minimize that impact. So I think your suggestion is a really good one to really take a look at what we learned from this and what we can do better, but it wasn't for lack of engagement. Because the federal and the state money that was used on this project and paid almost 100% for Guadalupe requires public engagement. And so if you look at the website, you can see the slides over the years and the comments from the public. It's just that when you get right down to it and you close an access to a business, no matter how much conversation you've had, I just not sure how we avoid a really uncomfortable situation, but be happy to work with you on other ideas.
Sure, sure. And by no means was I trying to insinuate there was no engagement, but we wouldn't have had a super packed town hall if folks felt part of the process the whole way through. And I think another piece of the puzzle is, as Councilor Castro mentioned, the economic development portion where we can work with businesses when certain parts of roadway are closed down. They know their business might be impacted. How do we figure out how to continue to drive business to that business, whether it be through vouchers, online promotions? I think there's great opportunity for us to learn from the businesses that were impacted, to say, how could we have done better? How could have the city supported your business? Because I think that was one thing, correct me if I'm wrong, Councilor Castro, that was mentioned. What if the city gave out $50 gift certificates to these businesses? And I don't know the full legalities. I don't think we could just give them out, but if we had some type of promotion and really work to support local businesses. I mean, we've got the new initiative called Buy Local. What better way to springboard it through economic development? So as we're doing that after action, maybe get some insight from businesses as well, not only regarding the community engagement, but how could the city helped to ensure that your business was continued to be supported by local residents?
Thank you, Councilor Garcia. And I think we do have a really engaged staff. Lisa Montoya, who's the new Community Development Director, has been speaking to us about our upcoming plans. And I think they're really sitting down at the table to try to figure that out. So I think that's a great suggestion. And I'm sure we can come up with something as a team.
Okay, perfect. Well, again, thank you, Director Wheeler. Thank you, Romello. Thank you, Cody. And I don't think our community can anticipate that August 30th date. It's one of those fingers crossed, toes crossed, knocking on wood. Let's get it done. So good luck.
Councilor Lee Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you guys. Thank you all for the presentation. And I'll just, ask a couple questions about the South Meadows and the, when is our target date for that completion?
Full completion, we have a target date for December 30th.
Okay. We know pretty much the reasons why that got held back or what stopped that in its tracks. So December 30th, I don't know if I missed it, but what percentage then of the project has been completed?
Currently to date, we're at 90%.
90.
The last 10% will be what we'll be lacking for the installation of the permit traffic signals.
So that's what makes it longer. I mean, obviously.
Correct, yes.
And what holds that back?
So it's the long lead times for the equipment for the traffic signals. They're 6 to 8 months out in time for them to, from the time they're ordered until the time that they're received. And that's just because of the way shipping demands and demands for those type of equipment and supplies are for.
Okay, and we didn't try ordering those earlier? Why couldn't we have ordered those earlier?
We had a major design change done by our city engineer that redesigned those signals. And from the time that they were approved, we received the finally approved plans at the beginning of this year. And the contractor ordered them as soon as the design was, the redesign for those signals was approved. We're hoping that we can have those installed come October, but the manufacturer is giving us a date of the early December, and then we have the 3 weeks for installation time with the contractor.
Okay, yeah, the repivoting or when you have to stop and redo stuff, I get those those changes.
Okay.
It's challenging. We get a lot of calls on it, obviously. It's a very, very, very heavily used intersection with the school being there. So, yeah,
And Councilor Garcia, that's because the standards changed for the traffic signals, and the ones that we were going to install no longer complied with the current standards.
okay, so that was changed mid-project by the state or just federal agency?
That was so we could comply with the current standards.
And then, you mentioned the roundabout at, Riverside, or the
At Cottonwood intersection.
Cottonwood,
Yes, sir.
Cottonwood entrance. Our conversations, Romala, you said that's or even, Director, you said that's gonna be a bigger project. How long do we expect for that to take? Start to completion?
We're anticipating 12 months.
Okay. Given there's no issues, because this one wouldn't have been this long without the problems.
That's correct. We're currently working with the utility companies and the right of way now so that we avoid those type of issues that we had with Agua Fria and South Meadows. Those are hard lessons that we learned, and we are making track to make sure that we don't repeat those again.
Yeah, that's wise. To Councilor Michael Garcia's point that to get lessons learned and how not to repeat those. And then the last thing I'll have is there's the trail there on the library trail. What is it called? Yes, we have funding for that as well.
If you could speak into the mic about the name of the trail, please, that'd be great.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia. Yes, it's called the Tierra Contenta Trail Extension from Buffalo Grass to South Meadows.
Yes.
And we start construction on August 4th.
And what's the time frame on that?
It's 6 months. It was bid out for 6 months to,
The contract time for it is 180 calendar working days.
the bid is calendar days, but they don't actually work on Saturday and Sunday and holidays. So that will be subtracted from or added some days to the calendar days. But we don't expect a lot of problem with trails because there's not really utility relocations. You don't see old infrastructure on construction of trails. That's why for this fiscal year, we finished 2 trail construction.
Yes.
It's a lot easier.
The roofing
Extra.
extension is also gonna be, and there's a lot going on. Just by your report of how many projects are being completed, being worked on in the pipeline. And so there's a lot going on, and I think that, just juggling that, kudos to you guys. It's difficult. So I do see that. And lastly, I guess with some of these projects, and maybe this could be a question for the director in terms of projects. And I don't know how this works, if it could work, but I know it used to be done in other instances in the past where when projects are finished beforehand, they get a bonus. When they overextend their date, well, you start paying them less because they're not hitting their target date. Now, I don't know how that works with their city, but it seems like that's something that could be maybe looked at in the future for some of these projects. And I do know there's circumstances like what happened in Guadalupe. And we are constructing, especially in this area of town, in a very old city, and that's difficult. Reconstructing is just, you find skeletal remains of a prehistoric mouse that's there and everything stops. So anyway, those are my questions. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, Counselor. Just really quickly, can you go back to that project timeline slide? On the Guadalupe Street, I think it's just really important to see how long this thing has been in the pipeline. I was on the MPO. I was first elected when we were starting design. It is truly amazing how long these projects take. And, you know, I think sometimes the community doesn't always clue in maybe at the level they should, even when we go out for public engagement, to what these things mean. And this is a major, major redesign of this street. In your previous slide, all of the things that you're trying to do here. This is, I just want to point out the length of time, the enormity of the task. And I do have one question. 100% HSIP funded. What is HSIP?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a Highway Safety Improvement Program of the FHWA, or the Federal Highway Administration.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I could add to that,
Sure.
the fact that this is Highway Safety Improvement Program means that the federal government felt like it was really important that we improve this road. And so it wasn't just, you know, a nice to have, or there wasn't, you know, a special interest group that felt like it, but this was something the city really needed to do for safety. And we saw it starting to boom with all those small businesses that started popping in along the side. And it became a district that was really becoming kind of vibrant, but had this really difficult traffic flow, really difficult parking situation. So while it has been painful, it's been really important for safety and access.
Yeah, and I think in the long term, I mean, this is going to be an area where it's going to be a magnet. People are, I mean, yes, this has been a rocky road, pun intended, but I think, you know, hopefully, if we can just get to that August 30th date, these businesses can see a real change, and it'll be an area that really draws people down and hopefully makes up for some of the pain. I also want to note, I think when I was on the MPO, I think we spent $30,000, $30,000. It was a pain point at the time to do a movie about why this was needed and why, what it was going to do. And I don't know, we spent a lot of money on that movie. I don't know if it's possible, but we might want to dig that up and put it out somewhere, because I think it's important, again, to talk about how long we've been thinking about this and the enormity of this project.
It's posted in the Public Works Guadalupe Project website.
Perfect. Good. All right. All right. We have a lot to get through, and we have a governing body meeting in 15 minutes. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for all the work. I know how hard you all work, and I know this has been challenging. So thank you. I echo my colleagues. Okay, with that, we are going to move to our first item that was pulled. Remind me the letter. G, thank you. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Request for approval, renewal of comprehensive insurance program for plan year 2025-26 through the city's insurance broker Arthur J. Gallagher for a total of $3,959,968.57. We have Andrea Phillips with us tonight. And I think there were a couple counselors, Counselor Michael Garcia, I think you were one of them who pulled this item. I don't know how you want to approach this. Do you want her to talk about it, or do you just want to go right into questions?
We could, for time's sake, let's just go into questions. So I had 3 questions. Now with the 4th, there was an update I saw that came through this afternoon with, and maybe that will be reflective in the questions, but cost of premiums, this whole package went down from 4.3 to 3.9 million. What is the reason? Are we losing coverage? Because that's a pretty significant reduction in cost, especially in a market where insurance rates are only going up. So can you help me and the broader public understand?
Sure. And Nazreen Kopecki and John Chino with Gallagher may be in the Zoom room. I'm not sure, Director Wheeler, if you see them, but if they're there, if you wouldn't mind promoting them in case they have anything to add. But yes, the details are in your packet in terms of the various lines of insurance. One of the big ones was excess liability, and this was the update that was sent to you all on pages 30 through 34. I apologize for that. The excess liability insurance did go down to about 2 million from about 2.4 I think it was last year, in the prior plan year. Along with that, our self-insured retention rate went from 1.5 to 1 million. So that's good news. Yes, overall, our premiums are about 9.4% reduced from this latest plan year. And I attribute that to the good work that our staff, Melanie Lovato here in our risk management office, as well as in putting in place new policies and procedures and continuing with safety training. As you can imagine, there's quite a lot in terms of the city's purview for property and liability insurance. And then with the law enforcement, that is being separated out and will be through a different carrier. So I do think Gallagher has done an excellent job of trying to get quotes from different carriers to help cover the city. And so we continue to try to reduce our claims wherever we can. And I don't know, do you see them in the Zoom?
I do. Would you like to have them promoted?
Sure, yeah, and maybe
Michael-
they can hit some of the highlights for us.
Certainly. Michael, can you promote John Chino and Nazreen Kopecki to panelists?
Thank you.
And I don't know, do we have the ability to see them on screen? Are they on can you see them? I know we've been having trouble with our screens in the chamber, so I don't know if,
They are promoted and I can see them.
okay, and maybe we haven't fixed that. We don't have any screen ability, but all right, maybe they can speak. If either panelist has anything to add to what Andrea Phillips has just said, now would be the time.
Yes, this is
even
John
though we can't
Chino.
see.
Oh, can you hear me? John Chino?
Maybe while we're
From
setting up tech, if we can
Yes.
cover why we're going down from 1.5 million to 1 million. We would think we would want to be more covered given some of the issues we've had in the past.
Yeah, and so the coverage limits are the same. So we're not agreeing to a reduction in our coverages there for excess liability, but we were able to get a better premium and a lower SIR. And it looks like John Chino is, oh, you can see him now.
Yes, and his
John
hand is up.
Okay.
Mr. Chino, did you have something to add? And I think you're muted because you may have been talking, but we're not hearing you.
It says my
No, still not.
laptop says I'm unmuted.
It says turn up the volume. I'm not sure if that's volume on our IT side or
Hi, can you hear me now?
just faintly, maybe a little louder.
Okay, well, I'll get as close
Nope.
as I can to my
Nope, hold on,
microphone.
hold on.
My mic is on.
Okay, perfect.
If you could just speak a little bit, John, so that I can try to.
Okay, let's give it a test 1, 2.
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Can you?
Okay, hold on. We got an IT person coming down maybe to help us. Sorry.
Go ahead and please say test 1, 2, John.
Mr. Chino, test 1, 2.
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Uno, dos, tres.
Uno, dos, tres. Testing. One more time, testing.
Testing.
Mr. Chino, if you wanted to add now, we're going to go forward with the technology we have.
Okay, well, this is critical. We actually reduced the self-insured retention from 1.5 million to 1 million. That's not the limit. The limit is still 3 million. So in the current year, the city has a self-insured retention of 1.5 million, which means the city would be responsible to pay the first 1.5 million of any liability claim. Starting tomorrow.
Hold on just a second. We're going to have to take this in bites. Andrea, do you want to paraphrase
Sure.
what he just?
Yeah, so Mr. Chino with Gallagher Insurance is relaying that our coverage is still 3 million. Our self-insured retention rate has gone down from 1.5 to 1, but our coverages remain the same. And the question for you, John, is why did we get this great rate going forward?
Well, we were able to modify your structure, and by bringing in Lexington to provide the law enforcement coverage, we got a larger credit from your current carrier, Berkeley, as compared to the premium that Lexington charged. So by restructuring to two companies from one, we achieved a $300,000 savings, in addition to the much better self-insured retention.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if the counselors, committee members.
And I don't know, is that coming across on Zoom very well? Can you paraphrase? Andrea, I don't know what's happening or not. So Andrea, if you could just paraphrase what he said, and Mr. Chino, I'm so sorry. If you could try to give us little smaller bite-sized answers, and because we're having to repeat what you say, that would be helpful. Andrea, can you?
Of course. Yeah. So Mr. Chino was just saying that by restructuring our excess liability to have law enforcement covered by a different carrier than our general liability, we were able to get a better deal moving forward.
Okay. Did you have anything else you wanted to ask Mr. Chino or add to that?
Well, we had a substantial reduction on 4 other policies as well.
We had a substantial reduction on 4 other policies as well. So overall, it is a $412,000 reduction, but our coverages are staying the same.
Okay. Counselor Garcia, did that answer your question, or do you want him to go further into the 4 policies? And
No, I think, Madam Chair, that answered the gist of the question. I guess the follow-up question I have is, moving from.
okay. Are we okay? 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 Maybe we could.
Ron, can you?
Okay. Are we back?
Yeah, we're just.
I'm just gonna, while I have you here, Andrea, I don't know if there's any way we can work on this when we're not in the middle of a meeting, and get this sorted out, because I'd relay that to you and anybody else who's, I mean, this is frustrating, to say the least.
I apologize for that. It is very disrupting.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. Back to you, Counselor Michael Garcia. You were starting to say something. I'm so sorry.
No worries. Thank you, Madam Chair. So over the next fiscal year, is there a potential to see an increase in these costs from 3.9 million and have them increase at any time within the next calendar year?
I do not anticipate a change to our premiums.
Okay.
Now, our claims is something that we do try to generally estimate. Of course, it's really dependent on what we see that comes through. So, you know, that's harder to predict than what our premium summary would be. But Counselor, one of the things we've been talking about is trying to get on a different schedule for renewal of the plan year so that we're not trying to do this at the beginning or end of the previous fiscal year in preparation for the next fiscal year, because it is difficult and time crunch to pull everything together with this kind of timeline.
Right. And I think that got to my last question. And, today is the last day that we're covered under the current policy. Why is it that we're waiting until the last day to make a potential approval of next year's policy?
Yes, and so that's, to my earlier point, that's something that we would like to change moving forward. So not only will we have those figures for budgeting purposes in the upcoming budget year, but we'll also have more time to pull this together. So council just approved the professional services agreement for CCMSI, which is our third-party administrator, as well as Gallagher last Wednesday. So technically, they would not be under contract with us to help us negotiate these quotes until after that contract was approved.
Yeah.
So,
And I guess just the question, why was that contract not brought forward months ago? Because I understand this isn't going to be helpful in future
right.
proposals because they'll be contract and negotiating. But if we knew this was coming before us, why did we wait till?
It's a great question, and I don't.
And I know you probably don't have the answer. Yes.
No, but it is something that I think we could do a better job on in aligning those, so it's not a crunch time at the end, the last day of the fiscal year. But yeah, that's something I'd like to get onto a different timeline.
Right, just because for example's sake, what if the proposal brought forward to us we didn't agree with? And we went into a lapse of no insurance, that could really put the city in some serious danger. And so I think these are the things that we really need to pay close attention to. So
Absolutely. I agree with you. And I hope going forward, we can get on a different timeline so that we're not, dealing with this kind of crunch time.
okay, thank you so much for the responses and sorry for the tech district. Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. No other questions, Madam Chair.
Do we have other questions from the committee?
Move to approve?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second, that's fine. And I just would point out, that it does sort of back us into a corner, right? I mean, we are at the end of the year. We cannot go without insurance. So it would be good to realign the timing on this. It's actually, I think, critical that we do. So just echoing that. All right, we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Just 1 minute. Counselor Castro,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for your answers. And thank you, Mr. Gallagher, for being here. Very sorry about our technical issues. All right, our next and last item on consent, consideration of resolution number 2025, Counselor Pilar Faulkner, Counselor Lee Garcia, Counselor Amanda Chavez, a resolution proposing a ballot question to be submitted to the City of Santa Fe voters during the November 4th, 2025 regular local election regarding amending the city's charter to require governing body consent before a mayor can remove a city manager, city attorney, or city clerk. We do have 2 of the 3 sponsors here to answer questions. There are 3 members of the committee who have pulled this item, and in the sake of time, I am going to just go down the row. Councilor Castro, you were one of the people who pulled this. Do you have questions? Do you want talk about why you pulled it? Do you want the floor or not? You can say no.
I just was really wondering why this wasn't something that we were discussing at the Charter Review Commission. I will cede the floor to other folks who have questions, and then that's my only one that maybe the sponsors can address.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Did we have a motion on 7G?
Yes.
Did anyone made that
No,
motion?
move to deny.
Oh, no, 7G.
Sorry, 7G, the previous item,
We did.
sorry.
We
Previous
moved to
item.
approve and we voted on it.
Thank you.
But the motion was Counselor Castro and
Seconded by Lee Garcia.
Counselor Lee Garcia was the second.
Thank you so much. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no worries. Okay.
I guess I just made a motion on this one, though.
Okay. Restate your motion.
Move to deny.
All right. Is there a second? All right, that motion fails for lack of a second.
Move to
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second? All right, that motion fails for lack of a
Discussion.
second. We're gonna go, well, let's continue with questions and then we can go to motions. Counselor Michael Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I definitely appreciate the councilor sponsoring this legislation for bringing forward some proposals that would really create some checks and balances within our government. I think with the current structure that we're still having some growing pains with bringing on a full-time mayor. We're learning where it might be working well, but we're absolutely learning where it might not be working well. And that's where I think, you know, in some circumstances, it's good to have those checks and balances where the council can provide that check should a mayor want to get rid of a city manager. That might not be acting in, you know, political coordination with the mayor. And so I think my concern with this, and I've spoken with the sponsors around this, is that the way it's currently worded is it prohibits a mayor from allowing to appoint their own folks upon an administration change. And I think that is where, and I want to be crystal clear, I'm not speaking from the perspective as a candidate, I'm speaking as somebody who has worked in government for 2 decades plus, that this type of proposal would actually might have adverse effect, where there might be a city manager that is working well with the city council, but then it puts the mayor at odds. And so I think you want to have that transition capability. And so I'm looking at the organizational chart here. And so the way our structure is that the mayor actually only oversees 3 folks. They oversee the city clerk, the city manager, and the city attorney. Those are the only 3 individuals that the mayor has oversight authority over. I know there's some, maybe some confusion that the mayor oversees the police chief or fire chief. That's not the case. It's actually the city manager who oversees fire, police, IT, human resources, finance, public works, public utilities, community health and safety, community development, and potentially airport and risk and safety. I know that might be shifting with bringing a new deputy city manager on board. But I think this is where I want to ensure that we're creating a process that is equitable in the sense that the mayor is separated, but also has that oversight authority, because in the instance, you know, should this pass the way it is, the mayor would not be able to appoint somebody in a transition. That means the mayor might not be able to get some of their initial agenda moving forward because they, through their initiative and through their election, they are given their particular agenda of the voters, and they can get that through the city manager, done through the city manager. Now, I know the city manager has to work collaboratively with the city council, but the city council does not directly oversee the city manager. City council has the authority to remove the city manager, but the city manager does not directly report to the city council. And I'm just going off of this organization chart. If there is a different organization chart that I have not seen, then please share it with me. But the way it is the mayor directs the city clerk, city manager, city attorney. And so I've proposed an amendment, and I think it won't be ready until our quality of life committee meeting, where this rule would have an exception, and the exception would be that during an administration change, whether it's a newly elected mayor or a mayor re-elected, there is that ability where the mayor can request for the removal of the city manager, and it would not require the consent of the council. And I think this is the way it's worked in all three layers of government, federal, state, local government. There's been no real major concerns or challenges around allowing for that executive to bring on their own selected team. And I know that there's the perspective of, well, it's not the mayor's team, it's the city's team, but it ultimately is the mayor's team because that's who the mayor is overseeing. Mayor is the boss of those three folks. And I feel it's the responsibility of the mayor to have the ability to propose an appointment of their person. Then that's where the other check comes in place, where the council can say thumbs up or thumbs down. But I think that's where that checks and balances comes into play upon the initial administration change. Then in the middle of terms, I can completely understand where this proposal is coming from, because there is, and I've seen it firsthand, political alliances overweigh the needs of the council. And that is not ultimately what benefits the residents of Santa Fe. So those are just my thoughts. I think we can even go a step further, given the city council the ability to remove the city clerk and the city attorney, just as the city council can remove the city manager. I think those are the positions, again, where checks and balances need to come into play. And when there's not necessarily a checks and balances for these two other positions, I think it needs to be there. So I guess maybe that's a question for the sponsors. Could we amend that to include this type of proposal?
Chair.
Counselor Lee Garcia, you are one of the sponsors and a committee member.
Yes, thank you. And so I'd like to first off address a couple of questions. I know or a concern Councilor Castro brought forward. You mentioned the charter review commission that happens by direction of the city charter every 10 years. And so just a little over 12 years ago, the Charter Review Commission got together, and this was one of the recommendations to move from what's considered a weak mayor, part-time mayor model to a full-time strong mayor, kind of CEO, chief executive officer position. And so that was approved by the voters. And so it became the law. As the time has gone on, the second Charter Review Commission, which happened 2 years ago before last election, they came forth, and from my understanding, it was discussed of how is the strong mayor model working? Is it not working? Has it had enough time to evolve and show its worth and value? And they came and they basically made a determination that they wanted to give it more time. Now, just from my perspective and knowing we all appointed people from our districts to represent our districts on that Charter Review Commission, it was stated from some of the members that I talked to, not just from my district, but didn't seem like it was an initiative that wanted to be really discussed. So again, how do we, going back to Councilor Michael Garcia's notion about can things be politically driven? Quite possible. But so that was the determination. So when I started to think about how we can look at ways that we as a governing body can create a little bit more of a balance between the executive branch and the governing body branch, Councilor Faulkner and I started a discussion over what are some of the things that we could possibly bring forth. Obviously, we'd have to go through all the steps, bring it forth to the voters in November, and we are doing that. So the ideas were, okay, if a city manager, a city clerk, and a city attorney have to be approved through a consent vote, which is a majority vote only, then we felt it would be just as wise that when a one of those positions were to be removed for whatever reason, then we should also be able to have the opportunity to consent to that. In regards to, they could be performing well, and very likely at times, their removal could be politically driven, and we don't want to see that because they could be doing a good job. So that was one of the ideas. So I believe that, we have been in communication with other counselors in regards to the potential amendment that would state a new mayor could bring in their team, so to speak. But we also want to make it clear that from the governing body's perspective, you know, we have to work very closely with those people too. And it's difficult because there's 8 other members. But that's the reasoning for. Part 2 of this is going to be, and it's actually being drafted at the moment, where we would also have the ability to remove any one of those positions by the governing body in a majority vote. And so that's in the works as well. So a friendly amendment, I think, would be welcome in regards to when a new mayor would come in. But that's the reasoning behind this. And so that's where we're headed with it.
Counselor Michael Garcia, I think you asked a different question, which I'm not sure got answered, which is, I mean, you did have you did outline your amendment. But could you just restate your question for the sponsors?
I think it got answered by Councilor Garcia around was the thought process around looking into the removal of the other 2
Okay.
positions that are overseen by the mayor in consideration. And given that is, I would just say, let's make sure it mirrors the removal of the city manager, which is actually a super majority versus a simple majority. It's a bigger threshold to cross.
Okay, I just want to make sure your question got answered.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Sure. Counselor
Yeah,
Lee Garcia.
just really quick, in regards to that, I believe that, excuse me for a second. That was one of the initial intents, was to have both of them together on this charter amendment. But it was too big of a move on it. So by recommendation of the policy and the city attorney's office, it was decided to do it in 2 parts.
Understandable. And as somebody who worked closely with them back in 23 on, what was it, Marcy, 9 amendments? And so the Charter Review Commission put forward a good 9, 10 recommendations. And some of them was really looking at restructuring the form of government, in the sense, you know, removing the mayor from the council and taking away the vote and potentially giving them a veto, because we had that whole conversation that didn't pass. So I think it's might be incumbent of us to revisit the recommendations, because I agree, Councilor Garcia, they didn't have much time to do work. I felt so bad. That's why I think one of the charter amendments that we did pass was giving them more time and resources to actually conduct these Charter Review Commission meetings in a sufficient manner, because they were given like 4 months, which is, when you're trying to really look at changing the city's constitution, that's not enough time, especially given the complexity of our government. With that, I think I've kind of stated my case. I've got the amendment coming forward. I will have that our next meeting. I just want us to be able to, you know, have the foresight of, we see the problem, but I don't want us to be creating more problems for the future. And we want to, you know, lead with that mantra, leave things better than what we were handed. And I think this kind of gets us there, but I think there's some tweaks that need to be made, and then I would be in full support of it. But with that, thank you to the 2 sponsors that are here.
If I just may, one more quick mention is that,
Or
and I know, you know, we're behind the time, but I think, you know, having a governing body scheduled and this.
yeah,
is a
yeah, no,
project
we
for us,
need to
think
take the
that-
time to do the work of the committee. So
Yes,
I
thank you.
I while I was earlier pointing to the clock and the amount of work we had to do, I didn't mean to indicate that we should not do the work of the committee. We need to do that.
I think that going back to your comment about the Charter Review Commission and how little time maybe they had to work on this, it was very rushed. And within that was thrown in another ballot question, which was the 3% tax. And that took a lot of time. And it actually took up a majority of the meeting where we had time to discuss these charter review amendments, which again, look at the balance of how that was played out. But not to mention, we have the opportunity every 2 years to look at this, which, now's the time. And so going back to issues within our charter that we can see there's holes in, and maybe we can strengthen our process, our organizational structure, things of that nature. Come on, let's do this. And I know it does come to crunch time sometimes. So, and with that, I don't know if my, Councilor Faulkner would like to speak to this as well.
Well, hold on just a second. So there were 3 counselors that pulled this. I want to give each of the 3 counselors, and I was one of them, and I haven't had a chance to speak yet. And I'm also running the committee. Then I do believe I'm happy to have the other sponsors speak, but you were responding to a question from Councilor Michael Garcia, which I think got answered. So I think he's good. In the meantime, Councilor Castro, you've raised your hand again.
Sure, and I think a lot of the comments that I was referring to had to do with these 12 recommendations and some other recommendations, and maybe having a working group where we could actually look through all of that collectively.
Okay. And I'm happy to let Councilor Faulkner speak, as she is a member, she is one of the sponsors. But I do, rightly or wrongly, the way I run these committees is I do let the committee members speak first. And I was also one of the counselors that pulled this. And I'm not going to talk tonight about the merits of this proposal. I'm going to focus more on the process by which we change the city's charter, as Councilor Michael Garcia, the city's constitution. We do have a process that is to call a charter review commission and we can do that at least every 10 years, but we have the ability to call them more frequently. I think we did in the last go around give them hopefully more, they'll get more support, more time. And I think this is one of those things, the balance of power, how our full-time mayor system is working is a really critical question for the functioning of government. And I don't think that we should be making kind of one-off changes and in some ways personality-based changes. I think we need to be making changes devoid of the personalities and the current positions. We need to be thinking about how the structure would work or not work. And I think we need to have the process where if there's enough things that this council is concerned about, the governing body is concerned about, we should, as the process dictates, create a resolution, a list, constitute that charter review commission, have them come together to look at the things we want. They also have the ability to identify some things on their own based on the public's interests and really vet those out, looking at how other cities function, looking at how we've functioned, what's been good, what's been bad, and really take the time to weigh these choices and get good, solid recommendations with public engagement before we move forward with something to the voters. I would also say that I was on the Charter Commission that recommended a full-time mayor. There were things that we didn't do that were too big, too much, like take the mayor off the council and give a veto power to the mayor. And, I think that's something that should be looked at. I think and that might help us with the balance of power because we could really make the councilors more legislative and give them what they need to address some of these issues. So I think there are a number of ways that we can address the power imbalance that people may be feeling. But I also think that we have only had one mayor in this system. And so the last Charter Review Commission did wrestle with some of this, and maybe they didn't have enough time, resources to really delve into it as deeply as they would have liked. And they did say, hey, let's wait and give it more time. And I would, again, like to see us not do these things. I don't want to give the voters whiplash because we're saying, oh, nope, it's this way. And then, 2-4 years later, nope, it's this way. I think you have to give these things time to see how they work. I think there's some other things we can do as counselors, as a legislative end. And one of those Councilor Faulkner has been very interested in, and I have been very interested in, which is our budgeting process. And I'm happy to say I have been working with management on that, and I believe we'll have a recommendation coming forward to the Finance Committee at the end of the month, planting some seeds about a different way of going about budgeting so that the counselors and the council can be more involved in how that comes together. And I think that will go a long way in helping maybe some of the chafing that's going on currently. So there are a number of ways to address this. I also pulled this item mostly so that we could vote on it. And again, I'm not going to discuss the merits of this particular proposal, but really lean into the fact that we do have a process by which we change the charter. And I think this is important enough that we should follow that process. So that's all I have. Okay, I have one more committee member raising their hand. Councilor Faulkner, I will get to you, I promise. Councilor Michael Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if we can be given the guidance on that process, because in both city ordinance and our charter, it talks about the amendment, and the amendment, all it says is the city charter may be amended or repealed as provided by law. The city attorney shall review and render and publish a public opinion as to the legality and form of any proposed charter amendment before it is submitted to the voters. So reading that, I don't believe there's any process. It's great to have a charter review commission to take and study and provide recommendations, but reading the charter, and it's the same passage is stipulated in city code 10.02, under Article 10, it's of my opinion that a governing body member has the right to bring forward any proposed charter amendment, and it would be best suited to align it with an election. I think that's why we're up against a timetable for proposing amendments that might be included in the November election, but that doesn't mean something couldn't be included in November 2026 election. And again, I don't see anything that's stipulating here, either in law or in charter, that a councilor does not have the ability to bring forward any charter amendments. I mean, there were issues, for example, and those that might remember that long meeting that was in the convention center. I wasn't there. I was zoomed in from Chicago that meeting. I proposed a topic, a charter amendment topic, on the topic of bringing forth a Inspector General's office. The Charter Commission did not have any conversation on that topic. There was nothing that prohibited us from having a lengthy discussion on that matter, which almost passed. I mean, it was a very split decision. It was a four of the counselors were for it, 5 were against, so it didn't move forward. And, I think that's the thing. I was given the guidance at the time, well, let's bring it forward in an ordinance. I did, and it's been sitting there since 2023. So I think that's where I think charter amendments, this is following the process. I would have to disagree. So this is our right as elected officials to bring forth such recommendations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor, for your thoughts. And as usual, you and I disagree a bit. I did not, and I'm sorry if I led you to believe that I said that the counselors were wrong in bringing this. I don't think I ever used the word wrong. I said, and I'll just reemphasize that I think when we're talking about the balance of power in our governance structure, we would be well suited, we would be well advised to really take the time and constitute the Charter Review Commission, get the public input, get the experts, look at other models, see what we have, see why we're having issues with it, see what kinds of solutions we can bring forward, and really do it. Take the time to, as I think some of you have pointed out, that 4 months wasn't enough time the last time around. So I don't know why we think we can do these as one-offs in a month. So that's the only point I was making. I in no way was suggesting that the counselors were wrong in bringing this or not following the right process. So I apologize if that's what was conveyed. I certainly just want to say that I would like to see us constitute the Charter Review Commission and put these questions in front of them for their expertise and the public engagement that happens with it. So that's my only point. I'm going to give Councillor Faulkner an opportunity to speak to this as one of the sponsors. Councillor Lee Garcia.
Just real quick, and I just, when we're talking about bringing this forward, it wasn't necessarily looking at the last 8 years. It wasn't looking at now. It's really looking into the future of. There's no control of who gets into office when people are voted in, whether it's a councillor or it's a mayor. And, going back to, it wasn't in regards to any current administration. It's in regards to the future. And I think that, I believe that, yes, we should try to bring a Charter Review Commission. However, it seems like it would take another 5 to 10 years to get that going. And so this was something that I felt was really important for me to bring forward, and working through other counselors having the same initiative. And with that, I'll yield the floor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to go to Councillor Faulkner as one of the sponsors to make some comments on your bill. No worries.
So could we get legislative staff at the podium? Are they up there already? Marcy, who do these 3 positions, which I call the trifecta, do they answer only to the mayor, or do they answer to the city council as well?
I'm sorry. Chair Romero Worth, Councillor Faulkner, will you please repeat that question when you say?
Well, so do these 3 positions only serve the mayoral, like the mayor, or do they also serve the council?
Councillor Faulkner, Chair Romero Worth, I'm always happy to check with our city attorney on this, but my understanding is that these 3 positions report directly to the mayor in a supervisorial capacity. But those 3 positions also serve all of the governing body.
So there's this belief that these 3 positions are part of the mayor's cabinet, and they actually are not. They serve the city council as well as they serve the mayor. And I actually am co-sponsoring the piece of the amendment that Michael Garcia is putting forward, that an incoming administration can have the ability to change that team up as they deem necessary. But I do have to say, like, the problem is when we contemplated a strong executive, we did not contemplate the checks and balances that are necessary in order to create a place where there's less conflict. So if you have a strong mayoral position and you have a weak council, the likelihood of conflict and irreparable conflict is going to be higher. And I compare this to, like, in geopolitical terms, a security dilemma. So if everyone's equally vulnerable and everyone's equally armed, the likelihood that there's going to be irreparable or unnegotiable conflict is less. And so what we're doing with this piece of legislation is we're trying to just strike a balance. We're not trying to take power. We're not trying to do any of those things. We're just trying to strike a balance so that the the administration or the executive, if they are contemplating getting rid of a city manager, a city attorney, or a city clerk, that they then will negotiate with the council. And there's kind of like a space where the council can say like, we like this guy and we don't want to get rid of him, or this woman. Like there's a space where the negotiating becomes, everyone's kind of on the same playing field. And so that's really at the heart of this issue, is just trying, we've seen what we've had, 8 years to see what a strong mayor looks like. And we can, and by no means is it about personalities. But right now we can say this mayor did a great job or didn't do a great job. But in the future, and I have to echo the comments of my co-sponsor, in the future, we don't know that we're going to get a mayor who's going to do the right thing or not do the right thing. And so for the sake of the city, the council has to have some balance of power. Our job is to be checks and balance for the mayoral office and for the judiciary. And right now, that is not happening. And if this continues, it will only be worse for the city. It really will get worse. And so that's kind of like the driving force, is like looking at, okay, we tested this theory. It works in some places and it doesn't work in others. And what's fascinating to me is, as a lobbyist, I get paid to change laws, to kill laws, to make laws. Anything we do on the council as legislators is not infallible. It may look good at the time that you make that decision, but then time passes and you realize this really wasn't the best decision. It was good at that time, but now we need to change it because we're in a different time. And that's the part of being a kind of legislating for me as a leader, is like this idea that like, no, we passed this, it's it. We can't do anything about it. This is it. We can't change it. It's the law. And that's not true. Our job is to change things and to be flexible and agile. And I do feel like all we're asking is to allow the citizens of Santa Fe to vote on this. We're not changing it. We're asking the citizens of Santa Fe to vote on this. If it isn't something that they want to do, then it will not pass. But if it is something they want to do, then it will. And I'm always confused about why it is that if we're giving the people the right to vote on something, we're hesitant to do it. The people know what they want. They do. And we need to trust in the process that the people know what they want. And our job is to be a conduit for that. Our job isn't to decide that for the people. Our job is to be a conduit of the will of the people. And so to me, I'm like, why would you resist this? We're giving the public the right to vote on something that we feel needs to be looked at and needs to be questioned. And it fascinates me always that as leaders, we're like, oh no, we can't do this. And I'm like, so you're saying you don't trust the people of Santa Fe to make a decision about something like this? I mean, certainly we've all heard complaints about all the things we're doing wrong. Literally, we're just giving the people the opportunity to vote on something. And I don't understand why that is something that we're going to say, no, we don't trust the people. Like if we say no to this, we're saying we don't trust the people of Santa Fe to know what's right to do.
Okay, lots of hands up. Counselor Castro.
Yeah, just briefly, I do want to push back on that a little bit. Some of my concerns with taking some issues to the voters of Santa Fe has been that we, for example, with the excise tax, did take a vote to the voters of Santa Fe and it was challenged in court. There are a lot of complexities on how we pass some of these amendments. It is my understanding that even the original strong mayor did pass with the voters of Santa Fe and was not ratified into code immediately. There are some problems in our process that need to be well thought through and ratified before we take big steps. And I just want to be cautious with what my co-counselor mentioned and the sort of whiplash. 10 years is a long time, and yet we still needed more time and more resources. So though I definitely commend putting the power in the hands of the people, I think we need to be very clear what that power looks like, what the limitations are, and why we're going down those roads. Thank you.
Counselor Michael Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I gotta admit, I have not heard from one constituent saying that they think that the council needs to have the authority to intervene if the mayor wants to dismiss the city manager. And so I have only had conversations with constituents in response to the proposal, not ever anything that preempted the discussion. Now, when we talk about balance of power, and there's tonight's not the first instance where we had the idea of potential bad actors in play. And what do we do then? Well, there are current mechanisms in place, and one of the most powerful is recall. And I think that's where we can really look at amending that, because that is actually a topic that has come up a couple times over the past couple of years. And, one of the prohibitions around our current recall processes is that a recall could only be conducted during the middle 2 years of an elected official's term, not during their first year, not during their last year of the term. But that process is powerful as all duty. That's a way for the residents to really set forth some action on their own behalf. When we did 2 charter amendments last time that passed overwhelmingly, which was the initiative and referendum, we lowered the threshold. I was actually quite surprised and honestly disappointed that we didn't lower that initiative for recall as well. We only lowered the numbers for initiative and referendum. Maybe recall needs to be lowered, because initiative and referendum, so for the public that's not well aware of these processes, initiative is a process where if the people want a law and the governing body's not acting on their behalf, the people can take the power into their own hands, initiate the process, and get laws before the governing body. And the same can be said for if there are laws on the books that the governing body is not responding to on behalf of the people, they can take on referendum. And so I think this gets into that checks and balances portion we were talking about earlier. There are checks and balances to keep elected officials in check. And I think those could be strengthened, as I mentioned, especially with the recall kind of process. Just to kind of close back up, and I know there's the comments around cabinet, et cetera. These are ultimately 3 positions that have the supervisory authority per charter and per ordinance. There is nothing in ordinance or in charter that gives any supervisory authority to the governing body or council, none whatsoever. We work collaboratively with colleagues, but we have no, to even get the city manager to take action, we have to move forward with the resolution. Now, has that always followed the case? I'm sure we can reach out to City Manager Scott and say, hey, City Manager Scott, can you do X, Y, and Z? That can be accommodated in that manner. But in that instance where the city manager says, no, don't want to do that, that's where the council has the authority to propose a resolution and direct the city manager to take action on X, Y, and Z. So again, I don't want us to get into the nitty gritty of oversight, because the city council members have no oversight authority over any staff. None whatsoever. And if there is any law, charter, please point it to me, because I also think it's a misconception that I also would like the public to know, because that's one of the things I get as a counselor. I get constituents reaching out to say, hey, you need to have your parks team come and clean up the park. Well, Regina knows this. I will say, Regina, hey, we got this, but I can't direct it. If Regina wants to say, sorry, we're busy, and they're busy, that's where my request stops at the end of the day. And I think these are the little details that ultimately helps the public understand how our processes work and which actual levers of government hold the most power. Because at the end of the day, it's the city manager and mayor, because the mayor can direct the city manager to do X, Y, and Z. The city manager can direct staff to do X, Y, and Z. The city council cannot direct anybody to do anything unless it's through resolution. So I just think we got to be careful as we're moving forward with these type of proposals, because I'm all for putting law and policy proposals before the public, but we have to ensure that they're well aware of what is being presented to them. Because to kind of switch to a different topic, public approved ranked choice voting. If we were to take a poll of our general public to see how well that is working and how many people support it, and take that poll number versus the number of folks that approved it, that would be a very interesting case study, because I think people will have plenty to say about how that particular topic is working for our community. So I think, again, it's all about how we, whatever we present to the public, and it's our duty to present the best package to them. And then they get to make the decision. So with that, I'll go ahead and yield the floor, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor.
I guess if discussion is gone, I know a motion was made, no second. I think that in the preview of maybe allowing a next committee to have eyes on this, I would make a motion to move forward without recommendation. Also, which would allow the amendment to be introduced, which kind of changes the whole flavor of this somewhat.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to move forward without recommendation. And I just want to make a couple of other comments. I don't want to suggest that putting something in front of the voters is a problem. But what I think I'm saying is, it's not that voters are very smart. It's not that I don't trust them. It's that I want to bring to them a well thought out proposal that has been thoroughly researched, thoroughly discussed, that we've considered all the options, that we've gotten feedback from the public, that we've taken in the experience of the people who are working in this government, and that we have a really robust conversation about this, because it is important. I don't want it to float out there. I think it's also really important that we understand our roles, and I think we have some issues in this area. Counselors are policymakers. We set policy. We are not management. We do not decide how the city is management. We don't make hiring and firing decisions. We don't, we direct that something happen, and then we hire the people with the skills to actually go out and make that thing happen. And that's management. And so, no, we can't direct directors to do particular things because we got a complaint about it or somebody, isn't happy about it. We set the policy, and then we hire the managers to do the management. And so I think we need to be very clear that these are separate roles and both very important, but we're growing as a city, and we're becoming more sophisticated, and our governance structure needs to reflect that and work in that way. So I just wanted to add that. I think we've had quite a conversation about this. I think this is the beginning of many. We'll have other counselors weighing in with their thoughts. We've got amendments in the works. So we do have a motion and a second, and can we get a roll call, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Counselor Castro.
No.
Counselor Lee Garcia.
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth.
No. Believe that motion fails.
That's 50-50, 2 for, 2 against. I don't know how that. Does the Legislative Services?
It doesn't pass. It's got to have
It
a
fails.
majority.
It fails. Thank you so much. Motion fails, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, this is a interesting situation we have here. I guess, yeah, we don't have agreement here.
Move to table?
Well, yeah, I don't know exactly what happens here. We've never done this before.
Quick question, Madam Chair.
Yeah, yes, Councilor Michael Garcia.
Marcy, I know especially with the proposed charter amendments, there's a timetable. If this was to be postponed until our next meeting, the next committee meeting, how does that interrupt?
Chair Romero Worth and Councilor Garcia. Do you mean the next Public Works and Utilities Committee
Yes.
meeting? I think that might put us under some, I'm not sure if it would work because all of the ballot measures need to be turned over to county clerk by August the 26th. So, I mean, I know there are options like special meetings and such, but
The only reason I asked, because it sounded like there was others in the hopper, and I thought, well, let's just have this one march along with that one, because I think what I'm trying to do is figure out if we can get it fixed here to get it out of this committee, then it can move along, because right now we've got essentially 3 strikes and we're out. That was proposed to be denied, that didn't move forward, proposed to be approved, that didn't move forward, proposed to move forward with no recommendation, that didn't move forward. I don't know what other recommendations or we can move forward with besides postponing this till the next meeting.
Counselor Garcia, and Chair Romero Worth, I think actually, I'm sorry, I think I might have misspoke. I just pulled up the actual schedule of meetings so that I could see it. You all have the Public Works and Utilities Committee has another meeting on the 21st. So as long as this were to adopt on the 30th, I think we would still be able to.
Can
Correct,
I?
hold on just a second. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. So this has been referred to 3 committees. We have voted on a no recommendation. This doesn't stop it from being heard from the other committees. It only stops it from being heard from the governing body unless the only way the governing body doesn't hear this is if no committee recommends it. And the only way you kill it and it's dead is if 5 counselors on a committee say no. So we don't have 5 counselors tonight. We're missing a counselor. So this bill can't be killed here. And so I don't know why the schedule doesn't just continue.
Good.
Counselor Michael Garcia, sorry.
Because per our rules, it says council committee shall take one of the following actions pursuant to section 4C or A-F of the governing body procedure rules. Approve as amended, deny, no recommendation, refer to another committee, or postpone to a date certain. Those are our options in regards to the action that has to be taken by this committee. I'm at a loss because we denied approve. We can't do approve as amended. There's no amendment here. We tried the denial, didn't pass. We tried the no recommendation, didn't pass. We can refer it to another committee. That's one option. Or we can postpone to a date certain, which I proposed. Those are our menu of options per our council committee rules.
And just to be clear, that was my motion. I did say table, but I would propose that we postpone this to a date certain, which is the 1st.
Okay, we have a motion to postpone to the next Public Works, Public Utilities Commission committee meeting. Is that your motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to postpone this to the next Public Works, Public Utilities Committee meeting on, what'd you say? August 21st? Or no, July 21st. July 21st.
Chair Romero Worth, that's correct.
Okay. Do we have any discussion on this motion?
Are we sure there's not another one? Sooner?
Counselor Garcia, there's a break in the meeting schedule in July. That might be what you're thinking, the week of the 14th. So just to be clear, the next Public Works and Utilities meeting will be on July the 21st.
Yeah, according to the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're done now. Okay. We are going to
Vote on
get a
this.
roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Counselor Lee Garcia, did you have, okay.
Counselor Castro,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. On to, let's see, what's next? Introduction of legislation. So we have consideration of resolution number 2025, Counselor Amanda Chavez, Mayor Alan Weber, a resolution adopting the City of Santa Fe's 2027-2031 Infrastructure Capital Improvements Plan. And we have, well, Regina Wheeler is the staff on this. Counselor, I think this is self-explanatory, correct? So we'll just leave it at that. We don't have an executive session. Matters from staff,
No matters from staff, Madam Chair.
matters from the committee. Matters from the chair, acting chair. Our next meeting is July 21st. And with that, we are adjourned, and there will follow this a special governing body meeting. Thank you, everyone.